We return with another bombastic adventure from our swashbuckling super sons. We have followed their auspicious adventures from the hallowed halls of the Daily Planet to the ghoulish and ghastly streets of Gotham City. Now, our brothers face their most dangerous disaster yet. Do you know what that insurmountable foe could be? Darkseid is. On the fiery fields of Apocalypse, our brave brothers stand tall alongside Scot-Free, aka Mr. Miracle, and the most ferocious of the female Furies, Big Barda. Will this tenacious team-up be enough to stand in the face of the anti-life equation? Find out on this issue of Super Sons.
It's a bird. It's a plane. No, it's Super Sons. We are back for another episode. This may be the hardest episode we've had to record yet. It's a very heavy story. One of my favorites. So we're not going to do any of the normal intro stuff with DC News or anything like that. We want to get right to the story because it's going to be a long one. So we want to start it off by giving you kind of a crash course in the characters that will be featured today. We're covering Mr. Miracle by Tom King and Mitch Gerards. So that deals with the fourth world. Jake, do you want to explain what that means?
The fourth world is the fourth set of gods, which are known as the new gods. We've never talked about the old gods, which would be the third set. It was only mentioned a few times. But, so, the fourth world is set between two planets, New Genesis and Apocalypse. And these two planets are in an infinite struggle, until these worlds are destined to die and give rise to the fifth world, which was going to be a thing in the 2000s, but New 52 kind of threw that out the window. The fifth world was going to be Earth. Okay. With its leaders of both worlds being Highfather of New Genesis and Darkseid of Apocalypse, leading their people in war.
Our main character, Mr. Miracle, is the biological son of Highfather, who was traded for Orion in a peace agreement. Basically, the leaders of both worlds yeeted their babies to the other planet to be raised by one another for a peace treaty. So he was raised and tortured on Apocalypse. The young god earned the name Scot-Free due to his uncanny talent of escaping any torture device he was put in by Granny Goodness.
Dan's favorite new god.
Yep, I love Granny Goodness. He'd leave Apocalypse for Earth, where he would learn more about escaping from Thaddeus Brown, a human escape artist known as Mr. Miracle, and Thaddeus made Scott his successor to his title. Scott would go on to be a performer and a hero. According to Batman, he is the physical embodiment of freedom. He has the power of the Alpha Effect, which is the opposite of Darkseid's Omega Energy, which is those cool beams he shoots out of his eyes. He is also the keeper of the anti-life equation.
I don't know if that's canon anymore, but at one point he was. And onto the lovely Big Barda, a real powerhouse, and once the leader of Apocalypse's female Furies, she eventually escapes with Scott to Earth, where she becomes his wife and a hero in her own right. She was once a loyal follower of Darkseid, and in the New 52, maybe a little more than just once.
The female Furies are a group run by Granny Goodness, who are pretty much like the alpha dogs of the planet. They're in this story, but they're like super ferocious. So we have Oberon. He's the chain-smoking assistant to Thaddeus and later Scott, and he's just fucking great. Sadly, his part in this story is sort of tragic.
The next character is Orion. He's normally depicted as the hero of the fourth world stories. Not Firth, fourth. My bad. He is the biological son of Darkseid, who traded place with Scott during the peace agreements. He was raised on New Genesis by Highfather as his own son. He's the prime example of nature versus nurture debate. Much like Scott, who is good-natured but bad nurture. While that debate is less in the heart of Scott's character, Orion is a constant battle with his bad nature, which is illustrated in his appearance as he's more of a hideous beast who's not having it controlled by his mother box, and post New 52, he can keep his monstrous appearance through sheer force of will and concentration. He's also known as the Dog of War. Batman claims he is the embodiment of war. He's a being of pure rage, super powerful, and connected to the Astroverse.
I was actually reading Kingdom Come recently, and he's just ugly when he doesn't have his helmet on, but they make it seem like Darkseid is still there, but then it just turns out it's Orion, and he just kind of let his hair be gross.
Yeah, he is really gross.
Highfather, Isaiah?
Yeah.
The Highfather of New Genesis. Think like Odin to the Asgardians, because this was actually supposed to be a Thor storyline. He is the leader of the gods and trying to protect all life from Darkseid in his quest for the anti-life equation. And as of the New 52, he is the brother of Darkseid.
All right. The big dog himself, Darkseid. Damn, how do you think this
Euaxis.
Euaxis?
Mm-hmm.
All right, Euaxis. The tyrant of Apocalypse, and the guy that Marvel tried to make 2 copies of, is the most evil man in the multiverse as he seeks the anti-life equation to conquer every being in existence. While previously he was the brother of Drax, aka the Infinity Man, as of the New 52, he's the brother of Highfather. In older continuities, he's depicted as coming to power through succession on Apocalypse, but as of New 52, he's now the founder of the Fourth World, having killed the old gods.
Yeah, Darkseid is like a looming force in general in the DC universe, and he's probably one of the most intimidating bad guys in all of comics. So now we've got the Mother Box and Boom Tubes. Boom Tubes you've probably seen in any of the DC animated shows. The Mother Box is pretty much just the New Genesis iPhone that can create portals that you can walk through to go places.
Yeah. And then there's the anti-life equation, and I just have it written down as math.
It's just sad math.
It is sad math.
It makes you, it makes you being able to be controlled. It's the opposite of everything good. So it's like all evil, no free will, all that kind of stuff.
It's really just Darkseid's goal to conquer, to use this to control everybody and strip all free will from them.
Yeah. So, we've never done this before, but this story does deal with something we haven't had to cover yet. So before we begin this story, we just wanted to give a content warning about some imageries of suicide. If you want to skip this episode, we totally get it. It's a hard thing to face and talk about. Jake and I make a lot of jokes about a lot of stuff, but we wanted to take a second to get super serious about this. If you ever feel suicidal or unsafe, please reach out to someone. Call your local crisis center, emergency service, or the national hotline. Reach out to somebody you trust. Just talk to somebody. Don't weather it alone. The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline in the U.S. is 1-800-273-8255. Please remember that no matter what is going on in the world is so much better with you in it, and you matter. Now on with the show. So, we chose this story because it's for me it's the modern day Watchmen. There's so much going on. There's so much to break down, so much to look into, different themes and stuff like that.
It really pushes the genre the format of comic books to its limits. This could easily just be a novel. Yeah.
Honestly, if you wanted to pause this episode, go out, buy the book, and read it before listening to this episode, I full-heartedly agree to do that because everyone should experience this book. I think it's the only comic I've ever reread 5 or 6 times in a year. I reread this book a lot because I've been so nervous about doing this episode and not being able to do it justice.
I don't think I could ever reread this in that many times within that time.
Yep.
It's that heavy. I literally have to... When I was reading it, I really couldn't read more than an issue or two at a time. Like, when this was coming out, I decided, okay, I'm just going to wait until the entire book is out, and then I'm going to read it.
Yeah.
That was the wrong call.
Mm-hmm.
You really need time to digest each issue. Honestly, guys, if someone out there was listening and they liked this book and wanted to make a podcast, you could make a podcast about this book. It's 12 issues. You could get 12 episodes out of it.
But we're actually covering this book because our Patreon supporter, Ched. Big ups to Ched. I love you. I hope you're listening.
I was hoping you were going to say Illy.
Illy. So we're actually leaving out a couple bits in this story just because when you read it, I want you to fully feel some of the stuff. As I said, please pick this up. The art is unmatched. It speaks for itself. This, like, even the lettering is wild. Everything about this book is perfectly done. It's a lot. It is so hard to cover.
It's so meticulous. Like, especially because, like, when you're reading it, you're not going to be reading it like the same way the other person is. Like, when we were writing our summaries, me and Dan were pulling different things out of it.
Yeah, it's So, the creative team on this one is writer Tom King, art by Mitch Gerards, and letterer Clayton Cowles. Tom and Mitch are like BFFs. They're pretty much the dynamic duo. And Mr. Miracle was created by Jack Kirby. I just wanted to start...
Jack the King Kirby.
Yeah, I want to start like including who the creators are just because I think people should know. All right. Here we go. Issue 1. Our story opens with Scott free on the floor of the bathroom after a suicide attempt. The next few pages are the direct aftermath and all the pain that goes with it. There is no direct dialogue in these pages, but word bubbles of conversations going on around Scott. We see Barda in the waiting room in her full costume. These first few pages are so human and emotional that it was hard for me even to write about them. I still tear up even thinking about it. It hits really close to home. So, once Scott is home from the hospital, Orion boom tooms into his home and tells him to stand. He starts hitting him to the ground. The altercation gets violent before Barda steps in and stops it. She yells at Orion that he is not the son of Darkseid, but yet the son of Highfather, and he was raised in luxury on a pillow. He could never understand the pain of what Barda and Scott went through in the pits of Apocalypse, being raised by grinning goodness. We then get a distorted interview where Scott talks about the suicide as we begin to question if he is alive or not. Littered through the entire series are full black panels that say Darkseid is, the ever-looming shadow over the entire story. The distortions are everywhere. They happen in certain panels when you are made to question what is real and what is not, and Darkseid is repeated over and over and over. You can take it as you will. They actually mention it in the book, and they do make fun of it towards the end. But it's something that's just so unsettling the entire time, and you fully feel Darkseid's presence in everyone's lives. But Darkseid says 7 words in the entire book, and he's beyond intimidating, other than when he's eating a little baby carrot. But he double dips.
I got something to say about that scene.
You want to wait till we get to that issue?
Well, no, it can wait. It can be said now.
Go.
The only thing they're eating in there is carrots. There's a lot of things in that veggie tray.
Yeah, there's a big component of this book, and it's a veggie trays. I don't think we talk about it enough. If you learn one thing from Scott Free, is always bring a veggie tray.
Yeah, they're real powerful.
Highfather visits Scott to tell him that he has a spy in Darkseid's inner circle, and that he finally has the anti-life equation. It seems like this visit was to see how Scott was doing, but he can't stay because Darkseid has the ultimate weapon. The next scene is with Oberon and Scott talking while Scott tries to break free from some cuffs that he got from a Thanagarian. But Barda comes in and asks who he's talking to. We come to learn that Oberon passed away a month before. Scott keeps thinking about the conversation as he sits on the couch alone in the dark, because he believed that Oberon was truly there. The mother box rings, and Orion's voice comes through and delivers the news that Highfather is dead, and that he is planning his own resistance. The next page is just a full black page with the words Darkseid is. As Scott and Barda are about to depart, discussing the matters of who is going to watch the cats, Scott says there is something wrong with him, that he's seeing things that aren't there. He doesn't know how to escape this.
All right. Even just hearing that, you have to decompress for a second.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go to the lighter note. Who is watching the cats? Dan, who do you think is watching those cats?
I think she says it's one of their friends. I just can't remember who it was.
Do we ever see the cats?
No.
The damn shame. Alright. Issue 2. A Parademon's head explodes as we are transported to the War on Apocalypse, where Mr. Miracle is fighting for New Genesis, covered in Parademon blood. Orion has taken over as Highfather, where he's reinstated all royal formalities. Light Ray tells the couple to kneel before Orion, which Scott almost refuses. Orion has given them the orders to find and kill Granny Goodness, who raised them both. I don't take a second. I thought that was a pretty good reading by me.
I'm really impressed. I even spelled formalities wrong, and you read it perfectly. We're
Formality?
Yeah, I fucked that up. We're killing it.
Yeah, that was good. I was just like,
If Tom King or Mitch Gerards ever listens to an episode of this show, I really hope it's not this one.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I just wanted to respond about the fastback
He did.
typo.
We'll talk about that
did
later.
he?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know about that. You didn't tell me. All right. Metron... Fuck, now I fucked it up. Metron appears in their bathroom and tells Scott that he is not to know the face of God before vanishing. Before going to Apocalypse, Scott asks Barda if she ever liked Granny, before telling her a story of how she once held him. Barda never liked Granny. When they arrive in Granny's camp, she is so happy to see them filled with kindness to them. For what?
Yeah. That's why I told you to reread my parts.
Yeah, that's fair. I took a little too long in issue 11. That's my bad. Hell. But, guys, hell, she even made Jell-O. The Jell-O part's great, though. Especially just watching Scott eat it through his mask.
I think people are also the table in this scene as well.
I think people are always the table in this book.
Everywhere on Apocalypse, the tables are held up by new Genesis gods.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty sick.
Alright. So, after everyone has gone to their respective tents, the two sneak around the camp and back to Granny. To their surprise, who was waiting for them. She knocks out Barda, and says there's much to discuss with Scott. Orion had tried to set them up, and told Granny they were coming to kill her. Plot twist, Granny was the true Highfather's spy and friend. Which, that makes everything makes you question a lot of things, considering how she tortured them.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. She tells him that Darkseid is fueled by the prophecy that he can only die at the hands of his son. He retorts that that Orion is his son, and she questions that before Barda awakens and kills her.
You got too big for your britches. You shouldn't have commented on how well you read the first one.
I know. I really psyched myself out on that one.
Yeah, this scene where Barda kills Granny Goodness is super
brutal.
It's brutal, but the art like slowly darkens as like all the matches go out in the room, and it's just Granny in this scene is So
this is
well written.
this is a master class in comic books.
It's so good. Issue 3. Orion brings Scott and Barda with him to retrieve Granny's body and to sever her head in a cruel act of power. We flash back to the home as Forager appears in Scott's house to tell him that Orion is a cruel leader and he keeps sending the bugs, his people, to their deaths as cannon fodder. Forager knows they will still fight, but believes Orion doesn't understand anyone's limits. Orion has become mad with power, going so far as to execute the Bug's queen when she went to discuss things with him, which had been hidden from Scott. Forager pledges his own allegiance and then begs for Mr. Miracle to take over because he knows that all of the bugs will respect him because Scott respects life and everyone. Light ray boom tubes.
Can I say one thing before we get into the next one?
Yeah, can you explain the bugs?
So the bugs are like one of the more they're like insectoids of New Genesis. They live in where the New Gods live in a flying city called Supertown. The bugs live on the surface, and I guess they're more so like the native.
They're treated super poorly.
Yeah, especially by Orion, who's actually, like, for a long time was really racist towards them.
Orion is a piece of shit.
Well, yeah, Orion is like I said, he's bad nature versus good nurture. Like, that's, like, a big part of his character. It's part of why he's interesting. But, yeah, so, but for anyone who's curious, Forager actually isn't a bug. He's actually a new god.
Mm-hmm.
Not in Young Justice, but that Forager's great.
That's the best character DC's ever created. So, Light Ray boom tubes into their home and executes Forager. Scott asks Light Ray if what Forager was saying was true, and Light Ray just sort of brushes him off before boom tubing out. During brunch, Scott tries to convince Barda that he needs to say something to Orion after everything he has learned. She says that after the war is won, they can discuss it with him. So Scott goes to Orion on his own to tell him what he thinks, and that he thinks that he has the anti-life equation inside him. When Scott asks Orion if he has it in him too, he is met with the question of seeing the face of God. This question comes up a lot about seeing the face of God, if you've seen the face of God, what the face of God looks like. Scott doesn't know the answer to that question, to which Orion starts beating the shit out of him until he says he doesn't know. As Scott is laying on the floor bloodied and beaten, Orion takes his helmet off and says that he's seen the divine and it helped him. He says that he is the face of God.
Still a lot to take in. Alright. Issue 4. Light Ray shows up to their house after the beating Orion gave Scott. He's being put on trial as a suspected agent of Darkseid. Scott doesn't seem to be upset over this whole thing until the trial actually begins. Orion pushes Scott over and over to admit to things like hating himself and being angry. This is one of the most intense scenes in the story as they push each other back and forth until Scott loses his cool when Orion asks him if he is the anti-life equation. Scott punches him so hard his stupid helmet flies off. And he helps himself to a carrot stick before leaving.
Like a bitch.
I want to know why it's all the most tense scenes. People are like, this is a good time for a carrot. There's a lot more things in those veggie trays.
To snap the tension.
All that crunch.
And they all need good eyesight to see the face of God.
Fucking carrots, man.
All bunnies can see the face of God.
Wait. Is Bugs Bunny a new god?
Tom King has canonically written Bugs Bunny, though.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. And Porky Pig. And Elmer Fudd. Alright,
Alright, so
You were on the carrot stick.
Yeah, he's holding himself to a carrot stick before leaving. Orion is shaded in darkness in the scene as Scott is pushed further and further. He seems to be as well. Scott is charged guilty and will have to come to his execution on New Genesis.
So, the art in this scene kind of, I'm not an art, I don't know how to critique it, but it looks like they're using some kind of charcoal on Orion's face that he just looks not dirty, but like covered in just like darkness. Every time
if you give me a second, I can run and grab the issue.
No, it's okay. We can break it down later.
Yeah.
So, issue 5. With the upcoming execution, Barta and Scott go do everything together for the rest of the day because it may be the last one they have for the rest of their lives. They visit Oberon's grave, listen to a hot track in the car, which is just screams of the tortured on Apocalypse from their youth, and they go to Scott's favorite sandwich place. They're basically doing a goodbye tour before he has to face the music. They discuss Descartes' theory, which we have discussed on the show before. I think, therefore I am, in reference to the face of God, which ends with, we look to ourselves to see our own face, and we find the face of God. Applying the theory of Descartes' philosophy, we choose our own God and world. We think this is the real world, therefore it is the real world. Barta, we see her crying on the edge of the bed about what could happen and what's coming. And instead of wallowing in this darkness, they choose to embrace one another. Also, the scene, there's like 2 really well done sex scenes in this issue. And this issue is filled with so much love. It's everything about it is just love. Barta and Scott's interactions are so real despite knowing what's going to come next. At the end of the issue, Funky Flashman, who's, you would say he's Stan Lee, right? He's written like him.
I don't know much about the character to comment on that.
Yeah, but he heavy-handedly seems like he's Stan Lee, in the best way. Like, yeah. And the 2 guards arrive with him to escort Scott. Scott's ready to go with him before Barta arrives in the room naked and beats the living shit out of them. She kills the 2 guards, and the Funky Flashman is alive, and they keep him in one of the devices in the garage. Barta says one word to her husband. Stay.
You give me a little note on this next issue. Issue 6. It's a little hard to write because it's pretty much all art. There's a ton of funny stuff, but the art is the standout thing. They're infiltrating New Genesis as they slaughter their way through the guards as they discuss renovating their conduct. It's honestly the most human couple discussing...
The most human couple discussion, sorry.
Okay, that's my... okay, I'll restart that sentence. It's honestly the most human couple discussion I've read in a comic, as the lovingly go back and forth about whose clothes would go where. It just feels really, really, really real. That's a lot of real. And if they really need a big kitchen because they're neither cooks. Barta wants to add another room to their house because she reveals that she is with child. They embrace before Scott enters the throne room, which is all whack in color and distortion. Darkseid stands in the room as Orion lays dead on the floor. They took a break here. Alright.
Yeah, the series took a break after issue 6. I want to say it was published like a couple months after, but Jake thinks it's a year. We can look into it, but it doesn't really matter. It's just like a really good stopping point. This is the point where Darkseid says the first time he speaks in the entire comic, and he says... He actually makes a comment that leads into a Darkseid is panel, which is awesome. Oh, he said Darkseid does not do, and the next panel says Darkseid is. It's like, all right, fucking big dick energy out here, Darkseid.
I think I wrote this some other point, but I just want to say that Issue 6 is my favorite issue.
Yeah, it's very, very good. Issue 7. Oh, Lord, the baby's coming. A lot of the dialogue and the art in this issue mirrors the opening of the first issue, but with life instead of death. So all the conversations going on in the hospital, the conversations going on around are actual conversations rather than just going on in the world around him as time passes. The opening of part 1 of the whole story is death, and now the opening of part 2 of the story is life. Scott is now High Father, as we find out from the female Furies, who are all sitting in the waiting room in their costumes. They all have such great personalities. Like, they're so distinct from one another. One of the sisters gives Scott a blade, which she promises to use to kill him later, that is strong enough to cut New God flesh, which they need to use to cut the umbilical cord. New Gods are too strong.
I'm pretty sure it was a Farron knife.
Yeah.
I only mention this because I wrote it another time in the thing.
The gods are too strong to be affected by normal humans, and it basically burns you from the inside out. So Barda and Scott go back and forth about baby names the entire issue, which is also fantastic. I didn't want to include all of that just because I want you to read it. They end up naming their son Jacob after Jacob's ladder that allowed Scott to escape from the X-Pit on Apocalypse that Barda helped him get away with.
That's also a religious reference that neither of us is really going to know because we're not really religious.
The issue ends as they hold their child for the first time together.
Issue 8. The war rages on between the forces of Fourth World and at home, between the kettle and microwave, as we see the couple adjust to both these lives simultaneously. Cutting between battles fought, forces pushed, and Scott doing his parental duties is the cruel and harsh realities of war, the gentleness of caring for an infant. There's also the harshest realities we all must face. Batman kills babies. Because when Funky, who we learn is, the baby's caretaker, he's the old nanny.
He's the nanny.
He is the nanny. Like the show, The Nanny.
With Fran Drescher.
Yep. Now we got our fan casting. When Funky this is due to Funky leaving a little Batman toy in Jake's crib. Scott and him argue about it until Scott says Batman kills babies. It comes up a few more times. Studies show Batman kills babies. Jason Todd. Scott is depicted brutally killing leaders and soldiers, but then gets his ass kicked in one-on-one hand-to-hand combat. Seeing an infant parademon killed by light ray displays that every side has its victims in a war. I just want to comment on that a little more because I didn't write a lot. But so there's a baby parademon clutching the dead body of I guess it's parental figure or just one of its kind, and then it lunges at Light Ray, and then Light Ray hits it, but Scott is trying to stop him.
Light Ray straight up sucks.
Yeah, Light Ray is not really Light Ray in this because Light Ray is
Bitch.
Yeah, Light Ray's normally supposed to be like the happiest character, and that's not what he is in this.
Well, he gets socked by Big Barda, and he deserved it.
Oh no, he absolutely deserved it.
Shut the fuck up, Light Ray.
But in between all these fights, we get to see most of Jacob's milestones, such as walking, talking, and while Scott tries to communicate with his wife, while they try to switch places at the front and at home. Scott got to witness his son's first steps, but he was on Apocalypse on, I guess, Motherbox phone, Motherbox radio, listening to Jake say "da" repeatedly. So that was nice, and this issue had many different superhero T-shirts.
Yeah, let's talk about the T-shirts for a minute, because
There's one specific one that I really want to talk about,
yeah,
and it's the Electric Superman.
yeah, I love that one. They include so many T-shirts.
Like, especially because there's one of the like glitch moments where, because the Electric Superman logo is when Superman was blue, and then the glitch moment turned it red. I was like, oh, that's cool.
Because there was two Superman, because there was a red one and a blue one.
Yes.
Gotta
The
explain
90s,
that.
y'all.
Yeah,
The
some people don't know that. Yeah, or Superman had a mullet. So, issue 9.
No. You brought up the mullet. That was a great time in comics.
Yeah, I love Superman's mullet. But issue 9, this issue includes negotiations, callbacks for reading glasses, and the drinking of the blood of your own people. Yeah, there's a lot going on in this issue. The
Calabac reading glasses is my favorite panel.
I love.
I know we were going to discuss that later, but I love it.
It's so dainty. I love Cal. His look is so. He looks like a Street Fighter character. It's the only way I can describe him if you've never seen Calabac before. Just look up. Well, just look up pictures. Maybe I'll post one in the description. He looks like a Street
Fighter character, but like if there was like a setting to do big head mode.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's wild. So
we see
the cruelty once again of Apocalypse, as prisoners of New Genesis are used as all of the furniture, or are chained at the bottom of the bathroom pit. Oh, the horrors of anti-life.
Poor Mark Moonrider.
As the negotiations go on, Light Ray has about had enough of the pleasantries and wants to fight in the negotiating table until he is forced to sit back down because he's a bitch. Much of this issue goes...
that gold eye patch. He just deserves like a regular one.
He deserves death. Much of this issue goes into how hardened Scott is from being raised by Granny compared to Orion Isaiah, going as far as to not be bothered by him and Barda drinking bone wine, which is made from the fermented bone marrow of New Genesis gods. So Barda basically had to crush that up when she was younger and make this wine. For the most part, Calabac and Scott are arguing on what topic should be considered, with Scott wanting to talk about the Sun Sword Commission, while Calabac wants to discuss a prisoner exchange, only for it to break out into arguing, with Calabac trying to intimidate Scott and actually failing to do so. Scott is gifted the Mirror of Granny Goodness, which belonged to Granny Goodness. It's called the Goodness Mirror, that reflects your insides. The image that Scott and Barda both see are horrifying, of what they look like to themselves on the inside, as Scott breaks out in tears as Barda holds him in her arms. Calabac comes back with a word from Darkseid on the terms of withdrawing all the troops, returning all the prisoners, and surrendering the anti-life equation. And all Darkseid wants is the custody of Jacob free. Darkseid is a grandfather.
I just want to point out something. We kind of get a hint of who that blood wine was made out of.
Who?
We've only seen one dead new god in that issue. And that was Big Bear.
Huh. Sucks. Jake wrote a joke at the beginning of the next one, but didn't explain it, so I changed his joke to another joke.
Yeah. I thought the other joke was funnier, but yeah. Alright. Booster Gold, Blue Beetle, and Mr. Miracle walk into a bar. Good joke, everyone laughs. Please like me.
Good joke, everybody laughs.
I'll
go on record, this is better than Watchmen.
Yeah.
Alright, continue.
But, see, now we're going to talk about the Watchmen news. They sit at the bar discussing everything that's going on while getting fall down hammered.
Oh, fall down hammered drunk. I wrote it wrong.
Yeah. I was a little confused for a second. I wasn't thinking about the context. They both support him. Also, Skeets is drunk. Shouldn't point that out. They both support him, and they know that he will make the right choice. The Freeze try to plan Jake's birthday, as Scott decides if it'll be the last Batman cake he buys for his son. He agonizes over the idea of giving up his little guy, while Barda tries to maintain higher spirits and refuses to talk about it. Scott tries to live his life, sans party store rewards membership. See, that I was supposed to be a joke, but no, it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right.
Yeah, you didn't explain anything about the party store, so I went into a little bit of what actually happens at the party store.
Well, I mean, we were already talking about him having a birthday.
Yeah, it didn't make sense without context.
Birthday and party store? No, it makes context.
No, we're trying to make new readers like this stuff. You have to explain.
Alright. Scott sort of lists out everything out of the party store employee who says that the whole point of life is to maximize happiness for the most people. And describes it pretty much the anti-life equation. Scott tries to talk to Barda while trying to rationalize that their child is growing up on Apocalypse like they did, trying to prove to himself and Barda that it'll be okay. Barda finally lets her composure down for a moment and about how she had to handle everything after Scott's suicide attempt. It's a very raw human scene, and it finally lets out everything that had been building up inside. As Scott and Funky are setting up the Batman party, Funky tells Scott a story that he and Jacob came up with about the Star-Eating God and his dog, the Golden Retriever, who double-crosses the Star-Eater by teaming up with Batman to stop him. The story is just Galactus, but it's 100 times better because it's Batman and a Golden Retriever.
Yeah, not the Silver Surfer.
The Golden Retriever, it's a dog. It's great. And the issue ends with Scott and Barda saying "I love you" after they discuss just killing Darkseid, and they just bang. Oh, right.
Here's your big issue.
Yep. There's a lot to this one. Actually, it was the most straightforward one. Alright. Issue 11. The Freeze pack to go to Apocalypse. They pack Jake's things, a veggie tray, a change of clothes to bring to Grandpa's planet. They're greeted by Sweet Leilani, who checks them for their weapons by just asking if they have one. Which, of course, they're going to say no. They just got a veggie tray and a stroller. And she just says, like there's a weapon that can hurt Darkseid. The story jumps to Darkseid really digging into them carrots. The carrots.
He double dips. That's evil.
That is evil. Desaad is clearly not having any of the bullshit. He's like, "You're here to kill the boss man." Scott's like, "No, we're here to accept the conditions, Uncle Desaad." I like how he calls him Uncle Desaad. Desaad still thinking it's a lie. Scott responds with sarcasm, just like everyone's Thanksgiving. The Freeze give Jake to the pair, saying they love him, and turns out Jake has a word for nose. Na. And the Freeze discuss whether or not that's his actual word for nose. Darkseid hands the baby to Desaad, so Pappy Uaxes could rip his eye out so he can no longer use his Omega Beams, renders the anti-life equation inert for him.
The reason that Jake is saying nose is because he's grabbing Darkseid's nose. This dude takes up 3 panels of page in general, and this little baby's just grabbing his nose.
Okay, now I hear it. I did leave out some context.
It's fine. This is a great episode. We're doing it.
I feel confident. Had some technical difficulties. We're just going to power through it.
Mm-hmm.
This was a lot. Lot to read, lot to write. Scott asks if he can say goodbye to his boy, which is agreed upon. And Scott hugs his son, telling him he loves him. And then, boom, double cross. Barda hits Darkseid with a big, and no, I know what you're thinking. Bigger than what you're thinking right now, laser. And... Sorry, I just got a message. Pissed me off. That Freeze... The Freeze had for an escape act, but deemed too dangerous to be used, no matter what they tried. It didn't work though, and Barda is taken down in one hit as she's calling Darkseid a bastard, which he agrees to. The second time he sees. It's just him being like, yeah, I'm a bastard.
Also, the laser is stored under the stroller, which is badass.
Yeah.
Barda lifts the stroller and shoots a laser beam.
Yeah, that was great. Scott stands before Darkseid and just says, fuck you. And then gets curb stomped while Darkseid sums up Scott's life and why he's a disappointment. Jake cries as Scott tries to stand and tells his son that it's okay. Reaching into the tray of nice veggies, our hero pulls out a Farron knife after Barda tells him to stand. But it's less standing and more jumping and stabbing Darkseid in the eye hole of the eye that he already took out, and just repeatedly saying, fuck you. As Darkseid falls, he explains that the knife was made from Orion's flesh, which is, kind of gross, because it turns out the other knife that they used to cut Jacob's umbilical cord was made from Darkseid's flesh. And then he explains that Barda made it.
Because she knows how to make the bone wine.
A lot of stomping. Do you think that's made by the same way that regular wine's made? Just stomping in a cask?
Keep going. We gotta finish this issue.
No, I need to know these things. All right.
We'll ask Tom King when we have him on.
Hey, Tom. Is this how you make bone wine?
We've been working on our own recipe. Alright, keep going.
You need to get some narrow. The Freeze discussed the vast amount of cursing in front of Jake, and how, instead of fuck you, they had planned for Scott to say, escape this. And then they hear Desaad, who they turn around and is sitting on Darkseid's throne. But it's actually Metron, who tells Scott that he has challenged death and escaped. And then he shows Scott where he's supposed to be. And it's the main universe with cool modern Orion. By cool, I mean the way he looks. He's kind of an asshole still. General Highfather, who's not as nice as he normally is. Kind of an asshole too. For some reason, what looks to be full-bearded Jack Knight Starman. And, the important here is Batman, Superman, Nightwing, Flash. Both Flashes. Then
Swamp Thing.
Yeah, there's Swamp Thing, but it's, I don't like Dreadlock Swamp Thing.
I love Dreadlock Swamp Thing.
I don't care for it. Then reaction shots of Scott, Barda, Jacob, Metatron, and then there's Scott eating a carrot.
And as we discussed, carrots are you can see the face of God.
So are we gonna give Tom King a veggie tray?
I didn't realize that Jack Knight was. Yeah, he goes to Third Eye, but I didn't realize Jack Knight was in that. Now I'm gonna have to go look back. So, issue 12. We return to our normal everyday lives in the big and free household, except This is where we are faced with the biggest question in the entire book. They're expecting their second child, and life moves on. But did Scott free escape? We are given 4 possible answers that appear on the page from the 4 people that we lost in the story. Jake has his own things, but in here you'll see which one I believe is the truth. So, you've got Granny Goodness.
No, read what I said.
Jake wrote biased reporting initiated. We're not reporters, not in these stories. So,
no, not really.
Granny Goodness. Granny says that all of this was made up in his head. The war, his wife, and everything that's in his life is made up. I'll call this one the purgatory ending because he exists. Everything is as it is, but he's trapped between heaven and hell for eternity. The Fourth World War is forever. Forager. Forager says that Scott actually killed himself and that he's in hell. Scott found a way to escape and decided not to. Orion. Scott killed himself and went to paradise. When given the choice to leave, he chose to stay. Orion's vision spews his normal bullshit about how life is about the challenges, the struggle, and the moment before the bow. He says he is disappointed in Scott's choice to live where everything is nice and easy. Orion is a punk bitch, and honestly, I'm happy that Darkseid iced him. Hi, Father. Some shit about how Scott now knows who he is, even though he failed. Scott socks him in the face before he can say anything else. Oberon. Scott hugs Oberon when he sees him as he begins to cry and just lets everything out that is conflicting. So he says he should have escaped, he shouldn't have escaped. All of these things that have been happening to him are conflicting. The world that he saw was full of crises and continuities that never really make sense. Is that really more real than the life that Scott is living, his children and his wife? Kid, all this, it'll break your heart. Can't escape that. But if you're good, if you stay good, you'll know. There's someone out there who will help put it all back together again. This is a very meta commentary on comics and how characters can be broken and be rebuilt by the next artist, writer, colorist, letterer, and a good editor. It's also a reference to a quote by Jack Kirby himself that said, "Comics will break your heart." So I thought that was a nice little wink at him. As I read it, though, this is where I chose my ending. I chose my continuity in that moment. Life just isn't about those highs, lows, successes, or failures. It's about all of those things, the people you love, and the things you love. So what if all the other answers are quote-unquote canon? Canon doesn't mean a goddamn thing when there's always another future. You can come back from failure, you can fail from a success, and there's always more. There's always a chance to escape. All that matters is that you and the world around you exists with the things you love in it. On the last 2 pages, Scott tells the woman that he loves that when he looked at his child, that he saw everything that came before them and everything that will be. He saw a million other looks and a million years before and behind, ahead with no ending, but there was an ending. He saw people that were gone or weren't or hadn't come yet, but he is here, she is here, their children are here, and he wasn't scared anymore. All of it was like looking into the face of God. The story ends with a kiss. Also, Scott's wearing a Adam Strange shirt, which is their next project with Doc Shaner, who did all the covers. I personally believe the continuity ending is the ending. Just the fact that there are so many different things that can happen, it doesn't really matter because your choice of what the character is what you believe. Continuity fits your own views because there's a million of them. Jake, you want to explain your answer?
My answer has changed a few times in reading this and thinking about it. I kind of, for a while, I thought he was just dead or he was just trapped in purgatory. But I kind of think he's not actually dead until the end of issue 11. I think the suicide was real. Um, sorry, this is a little hard to talk about. I don't want to continue talking about that.
Yeah, but I don't think this story is about that. I think it's coming back from that and the hope that there is that the people you care about, there's the things you love, and there's always another tomorrow. You can always escape. So, favorite panel or page?
Calabac reading glasses.
Mine is either the Dark Side 3-panel man spread, where he's literally spreading his legs across 3 panels, or the shower breakdown because...
I think the shower breakdown is my second favorite.
Yeah, that one was real. The
Calabac reading glasses, it's so in line with the book, the series, but it's just so funny. Just looking at it. Especially because,
moment.
When Scott learns that Bart is pregnant, I really just like issue 6 a hell of a lot.
My favorite moment was Scott is kissing Barta's hand when they're looking at the pond. There's a little heart drawn on the panel, which is, I love it. I was reading something the other day that Tom King tweeted. Someone was like, how do you write this romantic stuff so good? And it was just like, because I really love my wife. And it was just like, it makes sense. Like, he has so much passion about everything in his life. I really love Tom King. You could call me a Kingsman. So, favorite quote?
No, shame on you. Shame on you. Favorite quote. This is from one of the gods on New Genesis. Dude, I'm a god. I am theology.
Mine is another, like, it's not funny. It's actually really good. So when they arrive at Granny Goodness's camp, she's saying the nicest things to them, despite us being told that she's this evil, wicked woman. And she's telling Scott how handsome he looks. And she says how beautiful that Barta has grown up to be. And she says, I'm too tall. And Granny Goodness just goes, everyone's too something. And I was like, fuck, Granny, hit me where it hurts.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of... I like my quote because I just had my hand in front of my mouth. That's not a good thing to do when you're podcasting. Pro tip.
Pro tip from one of us.
Yeah. Guys, we are staunch professionals. It's just... There's a lot of heavy.
It's
just a silly line especially from that conversation talking about where is the third world and the first and the second.
And then they get killed too, so it's like, how good of a god are you? But yeah, that is Mr. Miracle. Please go read it. It's a heavy book, and everyone's going to have a different reading of it depending on who they are. I think you're gonna you can read this multiple times and at different points in your life, and you'll probably get a different answer at the end. Yeah. So find us on Twitter at DC Supersons, on our website at supersonspod.com, on Instagram at supersonspod. Support us on Patreon at patreon.com/supersons, like Chet did. That brought you this episode that I cried multiple times while writing the script of. So, if you ever doubted how much passion we pour into this, real tears are put into these scripts. So, Jake, do you want to do our new outro?
With pleasure. Catch us in 2 weeks. Same bat time, same bat channel.